Welcome back to another episode of Hoosier Game Day, this time without Griffin Gonzalez. I'm Gracie Barra, joined by Callie Metzger. It's an all-women squad here today on the show.
As it should be.
Yes, as it should be. Looking ahead to tonight's game against Ohio State, ranked number 5 in the country. But before we can look ahead to this night game, sold-out game here at Memorial Stadium, let's talk about Michigan State a little bit this last week.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what we were talking about last week leading up to the Michigan State team, everyone wanted to see Indiana kind of execute more on the offensive end. I think that's still a huge contender on why they're losing games. Tom Allen wasn't impressed. He said after the game, post-game, he was like, we're just not executing. The Hoosiers are making good plays. They were leading in, I think, rushing yards, passing yards. So they're moving the ball, but they're just not getting touchdowns. And obviously that's how you win games. So, I mean, defensively, they're doing well, but they need to step it up. So on the offensive end to make both of those worth it. So.
Definitely, and like you said, need to score touchdowns to win the game. That game actually featured their first touchdown in Big Ten play, which is hard to believe this far into the season.
Crazy.
And finishing off that first half, it was 9-7, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was 9 out of field goals. It was 3 field goals,
right.
3 trips to the red zone where they could not convert in the end zone. And like you said, Tom Allen really frustrated with that. Jack Tuttle also talked about his frustrations with that. And speaking of Jack Tuttle, first time we were able to see him as QB1. What did you think of that?
I think it's good to see him because I do think that obviously it's going to take some time for him to kind of get comfortable in that position. But he even said, those interceptions, he took ownership of those, and they shouldn't have happened. And I think it's just all comes down to kind of him getting more comfortable in that position, in which he will. But I was kind of thinking, leading up to this game, I think Hoosier fans are kind of putting him on a ticking time clock. I'm just saying, because it's like, I know he's uncomfortable because he just got put in this position, but they're wanting to see something from him. So I think he's ready. So.
And like you said, Hoosier fans, it's almost at this point that they're not really happy with anything that's not working. It's if Michael Penix isn't working, calling for Jack Tuttle to come in. Jack Tuttle's not working. Calling for him to get out. Nick Sheridan's not working. There's just a lot of frustrations with the Hoosier fans right now because of kind of the expectations they had coming into this season and them not panning out at
100%. all. Yeah. I definitely think so too. And I know this OSU game, this weekend, it's gonna take that kind of initiative from offensively. You can have a great defensive end, and kind of going back to Jack Tuttle, he's that leader and that offensive, and with as many injuries as we had prior, and now just kind of rebuilding that offensive team, they definitely need to step it up, especially for OSU. So,
and we talked about the fans a little bit there. Even though they're frustrated, I still feel like people are excited for this game, and they every week get their hopes back up again, and a lot of top 10 matchups, and tonight top 5, and it's sold out
night
stadium. Game.
Oh yeah.
All hope isn't lost yet.
No, it's not. And I think, we saw Michigan State. The score wasn't, Hoosiers were contenders in that game.
For 3 quarters of that game, it felt.
People were on the edge of their seats. And so I do think people are excited. And I think, kind of like I said, the anticipation's there for a lot of it. And so I think Hoosier fans are definitely anticipating for the OSU game to be a good one, for sure.
Before we break down the OSU game, we want to take a look at other Hoosier sports of this past week. Let's start off with volleyball, who had a matchup against Michigan. Griffin has more on that recap.
Indiana volleyball drops its 4th straight match tonight here in Wilkinson Hall against the Michigan Wolverines. Griffin Epstein here for the Hoosier Network. Indiana falls to Michigan 25-23, 25-9, 25-21. The Hoosiers' biggest problem tonight, defense. Michigan hit over 380 tonight, the Hoosiers' worst defensive performance statistically of the season. Indiana's effort as well, up and down once again as the Hoosiers unable to win a set for the 4th straight match. Steve Eyre disappointed with his team's effort over the course consistently of the match, especially in a struggle of a second set.
Pretty disappointed with game 2. I just didn't think we competed very hard, and that to me is a giant red flag where I have to address it And we have to find, as a staff, we have to find a better way to get them going and get them motivated.
There was one bright spot tonight for Indiana. Brianna Edwards continued to play well for the Hoosiers. The outside hitter had 13 kills, continues to get praise from head coach Steve Aird. However, there was very little production elsewhere offensively for Indiana. Edwards continues to be a one-man band. Indiana going forward takes on Rutgers, their only team they've beat so far in Big Ten play, Sunday at 2. For now, Coach Aird in Indiana needs to regroup if the Hoosiers want to avoid a lengthy losing streak in the Big Ten. For the Hoosier Network in Wilkinson Hall, I'm Griffin Epstein.
Thank you so much, Griffin. Now we're going to look at men's soccer. Men's soccer's coming off a much-needed win against Evansville, 2-0 this past week on Wednesday night. And not only are they coming off a win, but they're on a 5-game winning streak right now, and not just 5 games, but also 5 clean sheets in a row, which is a really good turning point for this team who faced a lot of adversity that they're not used to early on in the season.
100%. I mean, watching them, I love watching them. I mean, they're
fun
great.
Team.
They're a fun team to watch because I think one of the biggest things is that they love to play together, and you can see it, and it definitely makes a difference. I mean, this the streak they've been on. I think it comes down to Roman Celentano. He's an outstanding defensive player. He's Defensive Player of the Week. He contributes to a lot of this team's successes when it comes to the shutouts they've had, which have been crazy, as many as they had in a row. Uni also Defensive Player. Their defense is just great. But like I said, I love watching them. Yeah.
Me too. And it's been really fun to watch the offense on the other side too.
Oh, for sure.
Becerra's been looking amazing, and just watching them score so many goals over these last few games against non-conference opponents.
Right.
But I think one of my favorite moments from the Evansville game was, I think, Ryan Wittenbrink's goal, maybe an own goal, still not really sure, but really good for them to get that second goal in, finish the game, get out of there with a win. And looking ahead to this weekend, Sunday, playing Wisconsin, getting back to Big Ten play before they have their final non-conference game of the season. But now let's shift over to women's soccer, who had a draw this last weekend at Maryland, 0-0. And
I mean, they're a top 10 team, and as they should be. I mean, they've played outstanding this season so far, and I think, defensively, offensively, they're the same as the men's. They're great to watch because they work so well together. I think that they are really needing this win for conference play. So excited to see what they can do for sure.
Right, and they're 5th in the Big Ten, taking on Rutgers, 1st in the Big Ten. Let's look at the highlights.
Indiana women's soccer loses 2-0 to Rutgers, making Rutgers the official Big Ten champs with an undefeated record. I'm Carlo Barone, joined by Abby Heyman for the Hoosier Network. Abby, what do the Hoosiers struggle with tonight?
Tonight, the Hoosiers' defense really struggled. They allowed 14 shots on goal and just could not keep up with Rutgers' offense.
I would agree with much saying. That leads me into my next question. Out of the explosion offensively they had all year, what did they not do offensively tonight to score any points?
The Hoosiers had so many opportunities tonight and just could not finalize any of those shots. They only had 5 shots on goal and just overall could not keep up with the Rutgers defense.
A tough performance overall. IU travels to Purdue on Sunday to challenge the Boilermakers in another ranked opponent. I'm Carlo Barone, joined by Abby Heyman for the Hoosier Network. We'll see you next time.
Now moving into the greatest part of our show, what we're all here for, talking about the Ohio State game here tonight. Joined alongside us is Tyler Tashman, Hoosier Network football reporter. We have him on every single week. Tyler, thanks for being with us. Is that a new bow tie?
No, it's the same. I ran out.
It's okay.
I had 6, I think. I bought a couple extra because I had to get some into the rotation, but unfortunately ran out, so I go to bed. This was my week 1, so we're back. We're back
to 1 already?
Yeah.
This is what the people want to see, though. It's the Tyler Tashman bow tie of the week. That's what people come to the show for.
Yeah, I mean, you got to show off the fashion when you come here. Look, I mean, this is my first time in this studio. It's nice. You got to show up nice.
Okay. And then we have Matt Cohen, Indianapolis Star, covering sports for them. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Let's start off with just talking about what your expectations going into this game are.
Well, I think if you're IU, this is a game that, it's not really a measuring stick game. I think people wanted to look at the Michigan State game, something like that. This isn't really that. It's Ohio State. This is not a game IU is supposed to win. Coming into the year, I think there was a lot of the impression that maybe if this is the year that IU is finally going to beat Ohio State, maybe it's going to be this year. And this team is not what I think the most optimistic fan plays. This is not what that team ended up being. I would say expectations, if you're IU, I guess keep it close. I don't think this is a game that IU should have the expectation to win. I'm sure Tom Allen's going to go out and try to push them to win. Obviously, he's not going out there trying to lose the game. But this is a game that I think if you're IU, you're happy keeping it close.
The opening line was 19 points. I think that was a little bit generous for IU. I would have probably put it at close to 21 or maybe more, just given how IU's offense has looked. It really hasn't mattered. The level of defense that they've played, they haven't really had any offensive consistency. And you look at Ohio State, with the defense they have and just the caliber of players they have and the depth that they have on a year out and year out basis. I'm with Matt. I don't have any expectation for Indiana going into the game to win. Now something crazy happens if their offense totally, shocks the world, maybe. But right now I just don't see it happening.
We talked about Tuttle kind of filling this position and kind of just getting warmed up in that as well. I know fans are really wanting to see him just kind of burst out of a shell and put up some good plays. But what are your guys' perspectives on kind of like when do you think he's going to be able to make that comeback for the Hoosiers and be that quarterback that we have heard him and seen him potentially be?
Yeah, we were talking to him a little bit about this week, where he was saying he maybe felt like he was a little bit too amped up going into this game, just given that it was his first start of the year. And, he really hasn't played a whole lot of college football. He filled in for about 2.5 games last season for Michael Penix Jr. He doesn't have a ton of experience at the college level, and he's a guy that he was a 5-star guy out of high school, sought after by Alabama. He originally went to Utah before transferring to IU, but he doesn't have a lot of college experience. And it's actually interesting when he's talking about getting amped up. I was talking to him a little bit about it, and he said he listens to country music before the game because it like calms him down a little bit. He said he wishes that he could listen to rap because he kind of likes rap, but he needs to listen to country music just to kind of get his nerves down and just get more comfortable. So I think that kind of plays in the whole idea that like him just getting out there, getting more reps, getting comfortable, is certainly something that will play in Indiana's benefit. I think there was a couple mistakes he made last week with interceptions that it looked awfully like what Michael Penix had done in the first kind of couple games of the season with throwing interceptions off of his back foot. So I think the more reps he gets, the better he'll be, but it's just a matter of him kind of getting comfortable in the pocket.
And following up on that, you talked about him not having a lot of college experience, and you're right, but yet a lot of the coaches, Nick Sheridan and Tom Allen, wanted to give him as this, he's the experienced head, so to speak. And I guess he is by default. It's not like, the other options in your quarterback room is Donovan McCulley and walk-ons at that point, and you don't have many games at all under your belt in that quarterback room. And I do think Tom Allen talked a little bit about how Donovan McCulley's role might get in there, just to follow up on Jack Tuttle. I think if this is a game that's not close, put McCulley in. What do you have to give him a chance to play? Tom Allen said he's the red shirt is not getting a red shirt. He's going to play. This seems like a great opportunity to let him play. Sure, it's Ohio State. That is literally trial by fire. But I feel like why not give him a chance? Like if you're not going to give him a chance against Ohio State, a chance to try out something new in a game you're probably going to lose anyway, I don't think you have much to lose giving him an opportunity to play. And 3 snaps against Michigan State. Yes, he was nervous too, 100%. That's what Nick Sheridan said as well. But the only way you get him kind of experience, especially because he very well might be the starter next year potentially, is give him a chance. This seems like a great opportunity for it.
That's an interesting point, talking about how we regard Tuttle as this experienced guy when he's really not. And I think a lot of that points to the leadership that we see him have, and that's where that stems from. But kind of back on the offense, Matt, this is a point that you brought up a lot during the Michigan State game, was that they had not yet, until that point, scored a touchdown in Big Ten play. What was inhibiting them from doing that? How were they able to do that finally in the Michigan State game? And is there any chance they do it against Ohio State?
Well, if you're IU to have any chance of keeping this game close, 1 touchdown is not cutting it. And to think that, from what we've seen of IU's offense, to think they're going to go out and score multiple touchdowns against Ohio State, that's quite the ask. Unless they've figured something out within the week. This offense has struggled, especially in the red zone. If you look at the stat sheet from the Michigan State game, the offense really, you wouldn't know the offense struggled as much as it did if you look just at the stat sheet, because I think they had over 300 yards of offense. They outgained Michigan State. The offense on paper looked fine, but it wasn't fine. There were a lot of things that were wrong. The play calling was really questionable in a lot of ways, especially in the red zone. This offense just looks like they just honestly forget how to move a football when they get down close. They've had turnovers down there. I believe they have like the 96th ranked red zone offense in the country or something around that.
It might be higher than that.
It's I don't know what it is, but it's something bad.
It's high.
It's pushing triple digits.
It's pushing triple digits. I know it was 107th at one point. I think they bumped up a little bit because some of the field goals counted toward their percentage, but I think it was something like 24 red zone trips and 12 touchdowns, and most of those came against Idaho and Western Kentucky.
So Charles Campbell's the MVP of the offense.
I mean, Charles
He's
Campbell
not the
has
offense, I
something.
guess, special teams.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, someone was tweeting during the game about Charles Campbell's production, and I did math. And letting a journalism major do math is not a good idea, but he has something like contributed toward like 35% of IU's total points this year, which is a lot for a kicker who's only putting up 3s instead of 6s. So they need to find some way to get the ball in the end zone, and it just comes down to the red zone offense and not stalling. And 3s are not beating Ohio State. You need 7s. And they have not been able to get 7s. And to think they're going to do that against Ohio State, that's going to be really difficult. But to have any shot of even keeping it within 19 or I thought it was 20 or whatever the line is at this point, they need to do a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off of that, Nick Sheridan obviously has taken a lot of criticism for his play calling so far this year and just kind of the stagnant offense. And he said after the Penn State game going into the bye week that they kind of need to reevaluate what they're doing. Obviously, they watch film every week, but they need to look back and see what they need to change to allow the offense to be more dynamic. And to his credit, to a certain extent, they tried some different things against Michigan State. They brought in Donovan McCulley a couple times to try some quarterback sneaks. They spread Stephen Carr out wide to try to get him in some more space. They did some tunnel screens, probably like a little too much so, but they were trying different things. I think in the first drive, Jack Tuttle threw the first 9 passes of the game, and that's something that we really haven't seen at all this season.
And that was the best drive of the game.
Yeah, and to your point, though, they stalled in the red zone and they got 3 points. They didn't even convert for a touchdown. So, you know, that's what worried me the most was that you look at the criticism of they're running the ball on first down every single play. They tried something different against Michigan State, and it still didn't work. And that's where it's like, and you had a new quarter, you know, Michael Penix is out, you have Jack Tuttle in. It's just like, to me, there's no fixes within the season. And like, it's hard to see that, like, on a week-to-week basis, let's just make this little fix and this little fix, and our offense will be good.
Well, I completely agree because, you know, you watch the post-game, you know, recaps, and it's almost like Tom Allen's on a broken record. It's like, you know, he says the same thing every week. And so kind of like you said, trying something new, and which they did in Michigan State, was almost eye-opening for a lot of people because they were like, is this going to be it? You know, is this going to be something that's going to change the whole dynamic of the offensive side? But, you know, we can talk about the defense too. Obviously, offense needs a lot of work, especially going in at OSU. But do you think that, you know, Micah McFadden, midseason All-American, he's outstanding. The defense played outstanding with Michigan State. There's really nothing that a lot of people were able to pick apart in that department. But do you think that, you know, with the defense being, you know, holding this team kind of together, do you think that they are, you know, going to get to a point where they're overcompensating? You know, the offense definitely needs to step in, but especially playing OSU this weekend.
I will say, for as much as we've bashed the offense and picked it apart, like, the defense is just fun to watch. Like, it's fun to just sit there for, they may only be on the field for 3 minutes, like, because they force a 3 and out, like, nearly every time. But, like, they're fun to watch. Like, Micah McFadden is just tearing across the field, like, clotheslining people. Cam Jones is just, like, hit-sticking people. And then the guy that really stood out this past week was Noah Pierre, with Reese Taylor and Tywan Mullen out. And there's been kind of a depleted cornerback room with you know, Chris Keys already tearing his ACL earlier in the season, but they needed someone to step up. And Noah Pierre is a guy that the first 2 seasons here, or first 3 seasons really, he redshirted his first year. He's been playing behind like those guys like Reese Taylor, Tywan Mullen, and Jalen Williams are all Big Ten caliber guys. And he, instead of transferring out, which we see a lot in kind of this era and time period of instant gratification, he sat and he's waited his turn. He's bought into the process. He led the team with 9 tackles against Michigan State, had that interception in the 4th quarter that kept the game going. And so Tom Allen, like, it's a testament to a guy buying into that LEO culture. So I think that was just kind of another dimension, another fun storyline for the defense last week. And like I was saying, like the defense, like I just enjoy watching. Like they're just really fun to watch.
Yeah.
And they've played so well with so many injuries. I think the injuries on both sides of the ball have been really a struggle in this team. I mean, like looking at the offense first, like that lets the guys like, you know, Charlie Spiegel and Malachi Holt-Bennett showing up on the depth chart now. I mean, that's been how bad it is on offense. On defense, you've seen Noah Pierre, who was a guy that, I'm a senior now. In my freshman year, I remember Tom Allen at spring ball talking about Noah Pierre as a future guy, and it took until now for him to finally have his chance. There's a guy who's been here, as you're saying, has been here for a really long time, and, you know, seeing some of these guys that really, in the grand scheme of things, probably are not people who would be on the field if not for some of these injuries. I mean, they held Michigan State to one of their worst offensive games of the year without Tywan Mullen. Right. They bottled up Kenneth Walker, who led the nation in rushing yards. The defense is really, really good, and honestly, they deserve a lot better than what they're getting from the offense. Right. The defense is, while the offense has been one of the worst in the country, the defense is something like top 40, if not higher than that. And it's, you know, it's almost, and they're facing now the #1 ranked total offense in the country this week. So that's going to be a really good testament to how, I mean, this defense has proven they're really good. I don't think they need to prove anything more. And what they can do against Ohio State was potentially as the best group of skill position players I've ever seen. Will be really interesting just to see what Micah McFadden can do. If Tywan Mullen can play, it seemed like based on today, it was hopeful, I think was the word. But we'll be using binoculars at kickoff to see what's going on, like always. IU's very closed off with their injuries. If Tywan Mullen can play, defense has a shot to really impress, especially on a national. This game's on ABC, so there's a chance for the defense to have some national exposure. The offense, though, we keep going. Sorry to keep going back on it, but the defense deserves a lot better. They're not getting any help of any kind from this offense.
Yeah, like you said, probably going to be a showdown between Ohio State's offense, IU's defense. That's going to be what we're all tuning in for, honestly. But now shifting over to Ohio State, just kind of wanting to wrap up on. What do you think is going to be the biggest threat Ohio State has for Indiana?
Their wide receivers. They're so good. I mean, they have 2 first-round picks playing wide receiver in a Chris Olave and a Garrett Wilson. I mean, that is one of the best wide receiving core. Just generally, Ohio State's skill positions, running back, wide receivers, corners, safe. I mean, incredible. I mean, but that's just the recruiting you get at Ohio State. But I mean, that is an NFL roster playing in college, and they have not been typical dominant Ohio State, but they've still been really good.
They're still ranked 5th.
Exactly, they're still really good. Their only loss is a close loss to a really good Oregon team. It was still ranked in the top 15. Like, Oregon's a very good team. Ohio State's a very good team. They have the #1 offense for a reason in the country. C.J. Stroud starting to get a little more comfortable at quarterback, and hey. It's pretty easy to get comfortable when you have guys like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson to throw to. So I would say the wide receivers are what I'm most interested to see with Ohio State, just because those guys are really, really talented.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's C.J. Stroud. You know, he's been kind of on a tear the last 2 games, and if you look at the entirety of the season, he has 18 touchdowns to only 3 picks, almost 1,700 yards passing. He's kind of worked his way into the possibility of being a Heisman candidate. And when you just talk about the guys that he can throw to, that obviously just makes him, all of the more dangerous. And then in the running back room too as well, Trevion Henderson, a freshman who already has 9 touchdowns, and a guy behind him, Master Teague, who's a junior. That's a guy with a ton of experience who's not even starting. So not only they have talent, but they're deep.
Should we finish up with predictions?
We should. Yeah, I think so.
Let's go. I mean, kind of alluded to it this whole time. Matt, give me winner and give me your best score.
Best score. Well, I think Ohio State wins, and I'll say Ohio State 45. I'll give IU 17.
Okay.
I'll go Ohio State 35, and I think IU gets 10 on the board. I'm going to Charles Campbell field goal early in the first quarter. I'm going really specific here, but I'm trying. And then I'm going to say Indiana gets a garbage time touchdown in the fourth quarter.
That's how I get the 17. I think they'll have 10 a garbage time touchdown.
Tyler's given the defense a little bit more credit than you are with the 45.
I just think Ohio State's offense is playing so well right now. As you're saying, C.J. Stroud the last 2 games has started to look like the guy he was hyped up to be, and they're on a roll right now, and I don't know as good as IU's defense is, they have not faced an offense quite like what they're about to get. They're the #1 offense in the country by a pretty significant margin. That's going to be quite the test.
Well, I'm interested to see, too, is that this is supposed to be a sold-out game, in prime time, of course, but I'm interested to see what it's going to look like at halftime. is it still going to be full at halftime, or is?
Oh, I think it'll still be full.
Well, the marching 100 will be there.
Right.
We know that for sure. That's the one thing I know.
Well, they have to be there.
Yeah, they're like contractually obligated to be there. No, that's what I'm curious to see too.
Yeah. Or even in the third quarter, it was the same in the Cincinnati game, kind of when it got out of hand, like in the fourth quarter, people started heading for the gates. But this was a game that, like, kind of entering this season, people bookmarked as this could be like this could be Tom Allen's like crowning jewel win if Indiana had the first 6 games that they'd hoped for. Obviously, that hasn't happened, and now it would still be the crowning jewel, and it could turn Indiana's season around. But like we've been saying right now, it's just kind of hard to see that happening.
Callie, do you have a prediction?
I do. I'm going to say Ohio State's going to take the win on this one. I'm also going to agree 45 it was a good benchmark just because, kind of like you said, IU's defense is great, but Ohio State's defense combined is probably just a lot. But I'm going to go Indiana 14. So I'm going to say 2 touchdowns, and I think I'm making it even because last time I made it even and I was super close. So I'm gonna leave it there. But I think they can put up 2 TDs. So
let's see.
We'll see.
And I guess I have to finish off. I'm going to go 38, kind of meet you in the middle there between Tyler and Matt. And yours score too. 38 Ohio State winning. I'll give IU 13 points. Give Charles Campbell 2 field goals. Maybe we'll get a special teams defensive touchdown. I'm not banking on Indiana to score an offensive touchdown.
Honestly, I think it's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, I'm getting really specific in my prediction here, but I'm going to go no offensive touchdown. It's got to come from defense or special teams. But I think that does it for the show. It's getting close to game time. You guys, thanks so much for being here. Enjoy the game.